Right, developing any coaching session after working on the skills obviously is into conditioned games, which you then move on to the full, or as much of a full-sided game as possible. But the conditioned games are very important on the way to doing that. And the game that's going on at the minute now has just got an added condition, which you can do at any time. You can add new conditions to any of your games that you're playing at any time. The little condition here is that though it's a possession game, and we're trying to get the ball to the person within the zone, the fielding zone. If the ball hits the ground anywhere out the field, the little mini pitch that they're playing on, then the opposition immediately get the ball. So just creating that awareness of it's important to keep the ball to hand and not let it hit the ground, because when you keep it to hand, there's less variables, less things that can go wrong. So that's just a little added condition that is in this game. Well, I think it's important that during a coaching session that you give meaning to what you're asking the players to do. Because if you're just coming out, even if the session is nice and slick and seems to work very well, you have to ask yourself and ask the players, why are we doing this? You have to get them to think about what they're doing, because when they think about what they're doing, they're likely to work more on improving the level that they're at. Where if it's just a routine thing, then it can become just that, a routine. And routine is fine, but it's not enough. It's about learning new things, about stretching themselves to new places, about the coach actually engaging with his players, because when you engage with players, then it makes you think yourself as well. You don't just stay in the same place. Just another skill, obviously, is what we call breaking the tackle or rolling the tackle. It's a relatively new skill that's come into Gaelic Games. I suppose it was always been there in rugby. Tackle bags have been a rugby phenomenon up until a number of years ago. Now it's very much part of a Gaelic coaching session as well. And it's a great exercise in teaching people to protect the ball coming into the tackle. As you'll see, they're coming running into a tackle bag there. They have to get the ball on one side of their body, the side away from the tackler. If they get used to doing that, and roll the tackle with the other shoulder. And you'll notice that in Gaelic Games now, you see many players rolling the tackle as if it sort of happened by accident, but it didn't happen by accident. It happened on the training field, on the coaching ground. And you'll see some of it going on here, where the player's coming in, it's about taking the correct number of steps, it's about protecting the ball when he's going into the tackle, about rolling and staying in control, keeping his vision about him as he gets out of the tackle, because he may have to pass the ball as soon as he comes out of the tackle. So I think it's a very good skill, and it can be developed through the use of tackle bags over the course of a season. So we spoke about rolling the tackle, the use of tackle bags. This is just another progression in that, where there's two tackle bags, two players each holding a tackle bag, and the player has to what we call break the tackle. Now there's important skills here again, that they've got to have the ball well in their possession as they go through the tackle. Sometimes this is what happens to players, they actually are soloing or bouncing as they come to the tackle, and consequently it's easy to get dispossessed. This is to get them used to, we get our timing right, we get our steps right, we're in control of the ball when we're breaking the tackle, and we can use our 4 steps to get through the tackle rather than use them before it and have to do something when we're at the point of tackle. So it's just a progression again of managing things that will happen in the game.
Give it away. That's it. Hold on our tight. Yes, that's it.
Just thinking about what you were doing there, going through the tackle bag and even rolling the tackle. What are the key things that you need to be remembering in doing that? Look, we can do this all year again, and it's a new thing in relative terms in the GA world, but why are we doing this? Have you seen evidence of people rolling the tackle playing games? Yeah. Yes? Yeah. And do you think, some people out there might think that happened just by accident, this boy woke up one day and started to do this. It didn't happen that way. It happened because you learned the skill of doing it on the coaching ground here with the tackle bag. This is just moving the skill on to a more intense level. Players have been dealing with soloing with the ball, staying in control of the ball, but when you enter a little bit of competition, it brings it on to a new level. The competitions here, the boys are using what are called coordinates, obviously. It's 1 home, 2 home, 3 home, or 1, 2, 3, 1, 4. It doesn't matter what way it's mixed up. So it makes them think, number one, they have to go to certain places. They're competing against an opponent on the far side of the little zone. So and then you see, how does the quality survive when that happens? Sometimes when people get into this sort of competitive edge, then the quality and the skill level drops a bit. So it's good to recognise that, to say, yes, this is why you're doing this, because you can do the skills unopposed, you can do it without the competition. When you introduce a bit of competition, then things become a bit more difficult, and it's getting to that level. That's what coaching's all about, being able to do it at the competitive level. the process of coaching, and it's a process, it's a philosophy of how the game should be played, brings us on to new levels all the while. So we move from the warm-up, we move to specific drill situations to be more competitive in terms of mini games and condition games, and then we try to develop this on to as near as possible to what the real game will offer us. So now we've got some backs and forwards here playing some games, starting from the goals. The defenders are trying to get out through a couple of gates that they will try and carry the ball out through. It's important to have those gates out there that the defenders don't just kick the ball, because we want the forwards to work as defenders. And if they don't work, then the defenders will become creative players. That's what the modern game's about. We've defenders are very comfortable carrying the ball going forward. We need our forwards to be ready and alert for that, so they're not just there to score anymore, they're there to work as hard as every other player. So ultimately that's what we're looking to do, bring the progression along to as near as possible to game situations, and ultimately it would finish, if you had enough players, with a 15-a-side game or a 13-a-side or whatever number you had. So it's about bringing it through the various stages. And again, this is for every coach across the country, whether it be underage you're working with, whether it be a school team, an adult team, it doesn't matter what standard it is. You want to show that you're a progressive coach, that you're looking to bring the skills first of all to a higher level, then bring them into more meaningful situations and condition games, and then ultimately as near as possible into the real deal.
As you can see, there's cones dotted around there. If you score from outside that area, if you score a point, you get double the score, all right? If you score from inside it, it's just normal point or goal, all right? So it's just thinking about scoring from an area that, you know, it's that wee bit more difficult. Maybe a team have get a lot of players back there and you have to sort of really get the ball over them and get a score early. Also, it's looking about the forward movement up here as well, and about and also the defenders' marking duties as well.
Last time we saw their defenders coming out, forwards having to stop them. Defenders had the ball, had the possession first of all. Now we're creating a situation where the forwards are fed the ball, and there's 4-on-4 here in this particular situation. It's about movement up front, it's about showing for the ball, it's about working together as a unit up front. And again, anything can be done with this in the same context. Only your coach's imagination is the only thing that will bring you to new places. And it's good to have coaching. I think is a team effort. It's not an individual job, because there's more eyes you have, the more trained eyes you have on what's happening. If you have 2 or 3 people that are good that you can discuss this with, then together collectively you make sure that most elements of what you want are covered. So this is a different game here this time in that the forwards are getting possession. The little condition here is if they score outside a certain zone, they get double points for it. So it's actually encouraging them to take shots from maybe further out, and it's encouraging them to work together as a team. It's the process of coaching, it's the philosophy behind what you want to see happening, and it's about encouraging your players to know that they're doing things for a purpose, not just because it's a Tuesday night or a Thursday night. Heck, we'll train tonight and we'll do a session and go home. It's a bit about thinking as well.
See, a drill, I guess, isn't about we want to see a score every time. We want to see good defending, we're seeing that as well. We want to see tackling from the forwards, we're seeing that as well. So that's really the essence of it.
When you set up certain things, it is artificial to a degree. When you're taking little pieces of the play and little piece of game, it doesn't naturally happen like that in the game, but yet you have to do that to create those experiences. So sometimes when the defenders obviously know what's happening, then it's easier for them. They won't always be 4 forwards closely marked by 4 defenders in the course of a game. You'll find maybe one of the forwards gets himself 10 yards of space, you know. So that's a wee bit false, and we have to realise that as coaches and as players, that there's things you have to do which are very much predictable in this situation, but there's still learning in them. And as Tony says there, the learning will be where you send the ball to. The learning might also be the person who's delivering the ball. Is it always the first pass? Maybe you have to carry the ball a little bit. You know, maybe you have to think, look up, the first move isn't on. Maybe that player inside is going to check and make a second run. And really, as a forward and inside player, it's not any more about your first run. Maybe your first run will work sometimes, but often might be your second or third. You might have checked once, checked twice, and it's the player on the ball. That's what we're talking about, vision. That's what we're talking about, thinking about what you're doing, because it's not just simple anymore. Oh, I get the ball, I'm facing this way, I'll kick it this way. It doesn't work like that, because modern defenders know that players like to play quality ball in now. It's not the old days when the full-back was king and you tossed the ball in and it was bears, buns, bear, whatever it was. It's not like that anymore. People play smarter games now. So therefore forwards have got to get smarter as well, and they've got to make those runs, make really purposeful runs. A defender knows a forward is making a run that's only just a bit of activity and no real achievement. So it's about achievement. Is your run going to achieve something? So make sure that if you're going to make a run, it's a very deliberate run, that the defender will have to go with you. He can't take a chance that you're not going to get this ball, and therefore that takes him out of that zone as well. So a run, sometimes many runs that you're making that even if you don't get the ball is a good run. So never think that you have to get the ball when you make a run. That run could be opening up space for somebody else. So that's the thinking about the game and developing, and that's what you need to be thinking about as you go along. And never worry about artificial situations like this not working out precisely the way they ought to. There's no precise way for anything to work out. It's all about learning. It's about learning as you go and about learning new things every session you're in.
The next condition game is we're going to play, we're going to put goals up there in the 45. We're going to play everyone 10 aside. There's only one condition in this game. Each player is only allowed to score once. I mean, a man that's best place is the shooter. It's not because you have 14 or 13 or 11 on your back. So if you're good enough to get into a position that's a threatening position, take on the responsibility and go for it yourself. So this condition game is to give over the responsibility in a conditioned way. We know that everyone, if you score once, then you have to become a provider or playmaker. Somebody else has to step up to the plate and nail a score. All right?
This particular coaching session is moving towards the end of what we're dealing with now, but it's again a progression, bringing it out into having all of the players involved in a game situation. So we started with the warm-up, obviously the skills again. We'd have brought that on to mini games or condition games in a close contact, then more into thinking about what they're doing. Some of it a backs game, some of it a forwards game. Now we're playing a game which, and you can make it out whatever way you want in your own situation. We're playing across the field here, and the idea behind this game is that there's two sets of goals. So the players then, as they move up the field, if the route to one goal is closed off, then if they have a bit of vision about them, they can switch the movement of the ball across to another side. So it's just about creating this awareness again of vision on the ball, which I think is central to quality play. And then all of the players get involved in this, and it keeps everybody leaving the situation, leaving the session feeling that they were part of a good session. There was learning that took place on the night, and they'll come into the next session better players for that, individually and collectively.
Yeah, I thought it was very good, very helpful, particularly with the backs coming out with the ball and stuff like that, something we wouldn't really have done before training.
I thought the intensity of it, I mean, even the warm-up was so quick, sharp, even we were wrecked even at the end of the warm-up, and they kept it going throughout the session. 90 minutes hard work.
I felt the emphasis on teamwork and working for the team was very, there was a good message across there, you know, so I found it very helpful.
I thought throughout the training session with the drill of the blocking, we definitely improved on that as well. I think we could probably use that a bit more in our own training sessions in the coming year.
Coaching is about helping people deliver the best of their own abilities. It's very much about taking the skills and God-given talents that any individual has, helping them develop them to the best of their ability, and then, since this is a team game, how can that fit in to the team ethos? So if we've got those two principles in place, then we're not in a bad place. Again, it's so much about the process and about what you can do, what you ought to do to create good coaching sessions. And of course, it's not exhaustive. We haven't taken every element of the game and into fine detail about how each element could be coached to the last letter of the law, so to speak. But we're given a brief overview of an approach that I believe is good and best practice as we work with young people or adults or any team at any level, and try to bring them from where they're at to a new place, and to have players realise that a lot of this is within their own domain. You know, they will hear best practice at a coaching session. They'll have opportunity to do that in the context of a competitive situation, but it's really what they do away from the session that will make them either very good at this or still needing work done on a continuous basis. So if we get players thinking about what they can do for themselves, having an open mind to learning when they come to the coaching session, having coaches like yourselves throughout the country who are looking new ways of doing things and looking to ways of doing things well because they've observed other coaches, because they've read about it, because you've watched this DVD.